Hello, my name is BT Edney and you're watching AirTV at the Glasgow Film Festival.
Hello, welcome back to our coverage of this year's Glasgow Film Festival. Today we're here at the Frightfest exhibition where 7 Frightfest short films are playing. We spoke to the filmmakers behind the films to see what it's been like. Okay, so I'm here with the directors of Mulch, which just premiered at the Frightfest at Glasgow Film Festival. For anyone that's not seen the film, what could you tell us about it?
So this is for anyone who hasn't seen the film, so we're going to be very coded. It's a film about our relationship with nature. Anything to add?
I think if I were to add anything else, without giving too much away about our film, it's based on an old German children's story from an old German children's book called Struwwelpeter, translated as Shock-Headed Peter, and that's as much as we'll give, I think. Yeah, we don't want to give too much away.
Yeah, so it's a comedy horror about a young couple who get the house of their dreams, but it turns out to be a little bit haunted. So they don't really have a lot of other options, but so they have to come up with some creative solutions to stay in the house.
So Canary Bones is about an energy conglomerate who comes from London to look into a Welsh coal mine that's been closed because of a mining disaster, and he's looking into the possibility of reopening it for monetary purposes. And when he goes down there, he ends up encountering the ghosts of the victims of the disaster, basically. It's a little bit of a revenge story in a way.
So By the Light of the Fire is a campfire horror story from ancient Rome. It's a really, really short 5-minute, essentially a proof of concept for a longer short film that follows a pair of Roman scouts sat by a campfire.
The Birdwatcher, it was a really kind of organic, the idea came through quite an organic process, and it was actually with a conversation with Craig Russell, the main actor, who kind of approached me, and we'd worked together on various other music video projects and things like that, and we started talking about a completely different idea, and it was almost like we kind of workshopped it a little bit, and then I was thinking about scenarios where we could put a character in a kind of a strange situation where they're getting displaced, which might not necessarily have been done before in a kind of thriller horror film. So the idea kind of grew from there. And then there was another person on my team. He was originally talking about ice fishing huts where you can fish. They roll them out onto the ice and then cut a hole and fish through the bottom, and it kind of led me towards the birdwatching hut, and then this kind of wrote the idea down and spoke to the writer Lachlan Marks, who I've worked with also, and Lachlan just kind of took it and ran with it and developed it, so and it ended up what it is today, basically.
Well, Ali Cook, the writer and director, and he's also in the film, he found this Cornish legend called Lootie and the Mermaid, and he took that as the basis for the film, and then he found out that in Edinburgh at around the same time, it's in the 1900s, in the Victorian era, I think about 7 women went to the medical school and qualified, but they were not given licenses to practice medicine because of the prejudice against women then. So he married these 2 stories together, and the result is the Pearl Comb.
And it's got a lot of fantastical elements in it, and obviously you've done films like Highlander. How is it filming with those kind of outdoor elements as an actor?
Well, Highlander was a really long time ago. It's been about 1986, which is a very, very long time ago. And that was one of the first films I did. And the director was Russell Mulcahy, who was very well known for actually doing pop videos. And he was a brilliant editor. And he had lots of innovative things that he did with that film. And we've moved on a long way since Highlander to do with special effects. And when I read the script of The Pearl Comb, I did think how the F are they going to be able to do this? But I hadn't reckoned in CGI, because I've not really done a lot of CGI films.
And I've got to ask, because it was one of my favourite parts of all of the films, but the kind of morphs man, how did you go about achieving that?
Thank you, I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, it's I just thought it was like in my head when I wrote it, I was like, there is a way where this is achievable. It's not one of these ideas where you have to go crazy into budget or something. But on our wonderful costume designer and I think I pitched it to her. I said, there's going to be like a moss costume. Is that something you can do? She studied at Glasgow School of Art, so I know she's got some experience with textiles and can meet that challenge. So it was basically just a ghillie suit, and we went out and gathered as much moss as possible from the location just so it would match the tree. And Kenny, who has done about 6 of the roles in my film, including the score, was the right kind of build and size for it. So he was just really up for being put in that costume and hanging against the tree. I don't know if you've seen that, if you watch it again, but there's the kind of you see the moss monster in the tree, like kind of hiding there before the kind of statement shot where he shows up. But yeah, it was good. It's definitely the part of the film that I think works the best, and I'm glad you enjoyed it, man. Yeah.
And I've got to ask, since you co-directed this, were there any challenges directing it together, or how do you work together creatively?
Great question. The challenges of working together. I can't think of a single challenge, but sharing a vision. I mean, you direct something with someone. You're creative with someone. When you're kind of, I guess your tastes and your instincts align, and Alex and I, our instincts, our creative instincts and choices align. We always, if we have like 3 options, we always pick the same one. So we're always aligned. Challenges. I don't think there is any challenges. I would say that there are some times where we might have slightly different ideas, and there's an not unspoken friction, but like there's this kind of like, we don't quite agree, but we're never like, we kind of work it out. We try one choice over the other, and then if that one doesn't work, we'll go to the other one, and we can both agree that whosever idea it was works best.
Yeah.
So
can I add something? Yeah, so we filmed this in November, and it was getting really cold, and I'd never been to the location, and you had, and we got the only moment of friction that I remember on this project, because we've been working together for 6 years now in different projects, was we had to carry all the equipment to a location 40 minutes away, and it was heavy equipment. I'm sure you're in film, right? So it's heavy equipment. So there was one moment where we were like 2 hours behind and we hadn't even started yet, and we had a moment of friction about, do we bring the lights or are we going to use natural lighting? And I said, let's just do natural lighting, and you disagreed, and I'm so happy that you disagreed, because there's one shot that would not have looked anything like it had we used natural lighting. Yeah,
I felt very comfortable to put my foot down there, and I'm sure you feel comfortable to put your foot down when you need to, and I'm very grateful for it. I
don't want to give too much away, but the ending stretch of the film, there's some really incredible practical and visual effects in it. How was it like creating those?
It was a challenge because with a lot of short films, you've got finite budget, and you've got to decide accordingly where it's spent and where you're going to get the most kind of bang for your buck. So we kind of had, it was a real kind of a bit of a Rubik's cube of a problem. Like, we would approach it from one angle and then realise that wasn't working and switch it, and in the end we ended up deciding on kind of just having the floor of the hut in this black space. It's a bit like Under the Skin, the John Glazer film, that kind of situation, and the character kind of dealing with this, because in the original script there was we wanted to basically have a set that we would sink into water and water would come up, but it just wasn't possible for the budget. So we really focused on the black space, as we called it, and the floor of the hut, which we nicknamed the raft, because it looks a bit like a raft. And then the idea that, the character, without giving too much away, that the character can kind of go into another kind of world.
And there was a clip from Night of the Living Dead in there. What other films inspired this?
So we have sort of 3 outside characters, and they're nods to different genres. And I think like all horror inspired this, because I think it's such a great. It's like there's such a rich variety of tones and themes and topics that can be explored in such different ways. The metaphor of the monster and the ghost, like. We have 3 sort of like outside characters that represent different, like for me, were nods to different genres. So we had a priest who's our exorcist and haunting vibes. We have a witch who's our folk horror representative, and then we have our real estate agent who is American Psycho sort of thriller. That was sort of our thoughts of the 3. The 3 main things. Also, we like to play with tropes a little bit. So in terms of, we set up this like really romantic bath scene, a sensuous bath and someone relaxing, and it's actually a dude and not a woman. So that was also a conscious kind of nod to like an homage to the, those classic tropes.
And there's some really like terrifying imagery in the film. What is it that inspired those kind of images, or what like films inspired you to make it?
To be honest, I'm a big fan of like British horror. There's a film by Remy Weeks that came out a few years ago called His House. It was on Netflix, and as well as Starvaker, which came out a few months ago by Daniel Cocataleo. And they're British horrors set in working class British towns. So I was very inspired by just the environment in general where I grew up, and I think there's a lot of scope in the South Wales valleys. I think it's very underused on camera and in cinema in general. It was very much the inspiration came from where I grew up more than anything else, I'd say.
And so the film just played at Frightfest at GFT, and it had a great reaction. How does it feel to have it play in a place like that, and what do you think makes Frightfest and the Glasgow Film Festival special, I guess?
Shall I start? Please. Wow, we've been talking about this for the past hour since we've come out of the cinema. First of all, it's our world premiere, so having it played in front of 300, 400 people was just an absolute joy, and we've been going to Frightfest for a decade. It's the culture there is so giving, and people just want to see something new and want to see filmmakers having an adventure, and so it was just like a warm hug.
I was saying to my producer earlier, like the audience, a lot of people in the audience look like they're kind of, obviously they're film fans, but a lot of metal band t-shirts and kind of things like that, which is a world I'm really used to, touring a lot, working with bands. And I know that, it's a similar kind of fan, and I know that those fans are the most dedicated, and they're the people that will support, independent artists in those kind of areas.
Just the whole team, like everyone with Helen and James and those guys, they really let me know what was going on every step of the way, and like the crowd as well. Like the crowd was so interactive. It was just a really, really nice experience. And the other films were great. It's really cool to see what everybody else is making in the UK as well.
What was fantastic about it was there were lots of young Scottish filmmakers. I mean, several of the films were made here by native Glaswegians, which is pretty amazing.
It's a real honour. I'm very, very lucky because I'm from Glasgow. I have seen countless films in GFT 1, 2 and 3. It's really, really special. I remember going to see Frightfest in 2018, just when I was studying, really local, and I think I saw like everything on the listings, and to kind of return 7 years later is just really gratifying and really, really lovely for me. So I'm very lucky to be here and to just allow an audience to see something I've made and to watch other filmmakers' films. It really was brilliant.
The festival itself is fantastic. It's like great industry. There's just been such a variety of talks and speakers and like local talent. And I think culturally and humor wise, we're very similar in terms of like, we're very dry, we're very sarcastic. And I think that again is very comfortable. some cultures are a little bit more literal, and some of that you know might not necessarily come across or be processed in the same way. So yeah, no, it's great to be here as well. Also, Scottish people in general are great crack. So.